Welcome to the 2012 Annual Freedom of Expression Forum. Today we have Rebecca MacKinnon. Thank you for joining us. And your lecture today was The Global Struggle for Freedom and the Control of the Internet. And on that theme, I would like to ask a question that you speak of freedom and shared control of the Internet. Do you feel that zero government interference with information sharing online is the ultimate goal, or is a certain level of policing limiting freedom of expression not only inevitable, but necessary in a democratic society?
Well, I think the early idea of people who originally created the Internet and the earliest Internet users, that the Internet would be a government-free zone, was unrealistic. The Internet is an extension of human society. You have many empowering things, many delightful, wonderful things happening with the Internet, but there's also a great deal of crime, a great deal of unpleasant things that happen on the Internet as well. And so a lot of people who use the Internet are actually calling on governments to fight crime, fight harassment, fight hate on the Internet, and to help them do that. So I think it's unrealistic to expect that government will not be involved with governing the Internet. But just as when we talk about freedom in the real world, when you're talking about freedom in the city of Berlin, you're not saying it should be a free-for-all, right? Where I have the right to do anything to you that I want to, and whoever is strongest can get away with doing the most things, right? It's not a state of nature. So it's not about total lack of governance. It's about human rights-based governance, about democratic governance. That's what I talk about when I talk about freedom on the Internet. I talk about it in the same context that I talk about it in the physical world. I'm not an anarchist myself, offline, because I think there's a role for government, but it needs to be democratic. It needs to be based on human rights principles. And so the same thing must apply in the online world.
Thank you. The next question. The rise of independent new media since the advent of the Internet has limited the power of official traditional news sources, such as state-owned television networks and newspapers. Do you think this has resulted in traditional media tightening censorship and becoming increasingly partisan in order to combat this?
Well, I don't think you can speak of traditional media globally as one thing, right? Mm-hmm. You know, different things are happening in different countries. I think different media organizations are taking different approaches. So there are some news organizations that I think are more enlightened than others in terms of recognizing that this is a new world and that citizens have now joined in the creation of media and the creation of journalism alongside professionals, and that this actually can be a good thing. And that it doesn't mean there's no more role for professionals, but it means that people need to adapt. So I think the more enlightened news organizations and media companies recognize this. The less enlightened ones are calling for regulation and protection of their interests, are calling for censorship. But it's not that, you know, all mainstream media or all traditional media are all doing the same thing. You know, in some countries, the traditional media is state-controlled. So, of course, the media is doing the state's bidding, you know, so it depends on where you are.
Okay, fair enough. My colleague would like to ask you some questions now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand you've created a platform for bridge bloggers across the world so that they can connect and share information in a more open society in an online environment which is largely shaped by governments and commercial interests. Have you experienced any opposition from governments or other official bodies in trying to minimize the impact or otherwise discredit the work?
Well, certainly, you know, Global Voices Online is an international community of bloggers and people who create media, citizen media online. And many members of our community face censorship, face surveillance. Quite a number of people who are either members of our community or connected to our community have gone to jail for periods of time. I know several people personally who've been spending time in jail recently. There are people who've been exiled, people who get followed. Certainly Global Voices is blocked in a few countries, including China. So yeah, it's certainly, there are many governments that want to control what people see online and want to control the kinds of speech that citizens are exercising online, and so members of our community are no exception.
It seems like quite an excessive response to someone trying to simply put across their point of view.
Well, I think, I think if you follow the news, you'll see that bloggers in many countries get arrested very frequently. And if you look at the Committee to Protect Journalists list of journalists who have been killed and journalists who are jailed, they actually include bloggers and citizen media creators in that list. Anybody who's committed journalism, whether they're in a professional or amateur capacity, they include on that list. And the fastest growing category are online journalists and bloggers.
On the note of citizen journalists, what are your thoughts on video blogging and the recent case in Colombia where a citizen journalist has been threatened for successfully using social blogging, commanding a YouTube hit rate of about 600,000 or so, in respect of forceful evictions of farmers? Mm-hmm. Evidence of social blogging in effective use, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so what do I think about the fact that this person is doing this?
Yeah.
Of course it's a good thing. That this is the new age, that citizens have the opportunity to report on what's happening around them and publish it, or use the internet as a broadcasting platform. What's bad about that? Now, is that challenging traditional media and their monopoly over what citizens understand and see? Sure. But, I think an enlightened professional journalist will see that, well, I, as a journalist working for a news organization, I cannot be everywhere all the time. And I should certainly welcome the fact that people are self-reporting from their own communities. And I should see that there's a way to create a symbiotic relationship, and that anybody who genuinely believes in free speech should not be against this.
Unfortunately, we have to conclude our interview. Thank you for joining us, Ms. MacKinnon.
Thank you.